Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the biggest, most fundamental questions in all of human history, all through the lens of Jared Diamond's incredible book, Guns, Germs, and Steel.
And it all starts with this, just a really powerful question that was put to the author, Jared Diamond, by a local politician in New Guinea named Yali. And when he says cargo, he doesn't just mean stuff on a ship. He means everything. All the technology, the gadgets, the manufactured goods that the Europeans had.
So Yali's question, it's not really just about cargo, is it? It's much bigger. It's about why the world looks the way it does today. Why did history shake out so differently for people on different continents? Why were Europeans the ones who ended up conquering so much of the globe and not the other way around?
Okay, and this is super important. Diamond's whole mission with this book was to find a real scientific answer to that question that completely demolishes any racist explanations. He wanted to prove that the huge differences in power and technology we see in history have absolutely nothing to do with biological differences between people. It's all about the environment.
So let's start with the most direct, the most obvious factors that allowed some groups to dominate others. And to really see this in action, we're going to zoom in on one single crazy moment in world history.
Picture this. It's 1532. We're in Cajamarca, Peru. And on one side of this incredible showdown, you've got this tiny little group of 168 Spanish conquistadors. They're led by this guy, Francisco Pizarro.
And who are they up against? Well, just the ruler of the massive Inca Empire, Emperor Atahualpa. Oh, and his army of 80,000 soldiers. I mean, seriously, how did this happen? It sounds completely impossible, right? How did a group of guys that could barely fill a lecture hall defeat an army that could fill a football stadium? Well, it all came down to a few really huge advantages.
So here's the breakdown of what the Spanish had going for them. They had steel swords, they had armor, they had horses, some early guns, they had a political system that could fund these crazy expeditions, they had writing to pass down information, and maybe the deadliest weapon of all, they brought germs, like smallpox, that the Incas had zero immunity to. Now, these are what Diamond calls the proximate causes, the immediate reasons for victory. But this is just the how. It doesn't answer the real question, why? Why did the Europeans have all this stuff in the first place?
To get to that ultimate cause, the real why, we have to rewind the clock. I'm talking thousands and thousands of years before that battle in Peru. We have to go back to what Diamond argues is the single biggest turning point in all of human history.
It all starts with farming. That shift from hunting and gathering to actually producing our own food, it sets off this incredible chain reaction. Think of it like dominoes. Once you have food production, you get food surpluses. That means not everyone has to be a farmer. People can settle down, live in bigger, denser communities, and that's when you start to get specialists, soldiers, priests, kings, and crucially, inventors.
You can think of it like this. Food production is the foundation for absolutely everything else. You see, without a steady surplus of food, you just can't have large, dense populations. And without those dense populations, you never get the epidemic diseases, you don't get the complex governments, and you don't get the advanced technology that ultimately leads to conquest.
Okay, so this brings us to the final, deepest layer of the whole puzzle. If farming is the absolute key to everything, why did people start farming in some places thousands of years before others? Well, according to Diamond, the answer is just pure, simple luck of the draw. It was a geographic lottery.
And believe it or not, the opening line from a famous Russian novel is going to help us understand the history of our entire planet. It's pretty wild.
So what Tolstoy was saying is that for a marriage to work, a ton of things have to go right. But it only takes one fatal flaw to make it fail. Well, Diamond applies this idea to domesticating animals. For an animal to be a good candidate for domestication, it needs to have a whole checklist of traits: the right diet, a good temperament, a fast growth rate. If it fails on just one of those things, like say zebras, which are just way too mean and unpredictable, then it's a no-go. It can't be domesticated. And here's what that geographic lottery looks like in practice. Just look at this chart. Eurasia started out with a whopping 72 wild animal species that were potential candidates for domestication. The Americas, only 24, and Australia had just 1. It wasn't about the people being smarter or better, they just had fundamentally different and unequal raw materials to work with from the very beginning. And it gets even crazier. It wasn't just the animals and plants available, the literal shape of the continents played a huge role.
Eurasia is long. It runs east to west. That means crops, animals, and ideas could spread easily across thousands of miles because the climate is pretty similar. But the Americas and Africa, they run north to south. So trying to spread a crop from, say, Mexico down to Peru meant crossing jungles, deserts, and totally different climate zones. It was a massive barrier to the spread of innovation.
So, let's bring it all together. When you step back and look at the biggest patterns in history, the answer to Yali's original question starts to become incredibly clear.
And really, this whole massive idea, it all boils down to this one powerful sentence from Diamond. The enormous differences we see in history didn't happen because of any inherent differences in people. They are the long-term result of the environmental cards that different societies were dealt thousands of years ago. It's not about race, it's all about place.
So the big takeaway here is that having guns, germs, and steel wasn't some destiny for one group of people. It was just the end result of a very long chain of events, a chain that was kicked off by pure geographic luck. And that leaves us with a pretty deep question to chew on. If our environment shaped our past this much, how are those same forces shaping our world right now, and what does that mean for our future?